You can always tell a person's truth, not by how they act when they have you, but by how they act when they realize they might lose you. There comes a moment in every relationship when the truth reveals itself, not through sweet words, not through promises, but through behavior. Because when someone realizes they're about to lose you, the mask falls off, their comfort disappears, their ego shakes, and suddenly you see who they really are. Some become silent, not because they don't care, but because they don't know how to fix what they broke. Some panic, promising the world when they can barely give you consistency. Some chase you not out of love, but out of fear of being alone. And some finally understand your worth, just a little too late. When someone realizes they're about to lose you, something shifts inside them. It's subtle at first, barely noticeable, but unmistakably real. Their habits change, their tone changes, their energy shifts. You begin to see a version of them that was never visible when they felt secure, comfortable, or confident in your presence. People often behave their best when they know they have you, when they know your love is steady, when they feel certain you're not going anywhere. But the moment that certainty cracks, the truth begins to leak out. You don't even have to confront them or announce your withdrawal. Your quiet detachment alone is enough for their real character to surface. And in that small shift, you see the truth about how deeply or how shallowly they valued you all along. When someone senses your emotional distance, their response becomes a mirror reflecting their heart. Some people will panic instantly, their anxiety rising to the surface in the form of desperate calls or sudden attention that feels unfamiliar. It's not always love. Sometimes it's fear of losing comfort, fear of losing validation, fear of losing control. Others will act confused or indifferent, pretending not to notice your withdrawal, even though deep down they do. Their pride demands they stay silent because acknowledging your distance would mean admitting they contributed to it. Their ego would rather watch something break than take accountability. That behavior alone reveals an undeniable truth. Your presence mattered, but their pride mattered more. Then there are the ones who become aggressive or defensive. Instead of reflecting on their actions, they flip the blame, insisting you're overreacting, being emotional, or making things up. This reaction reveals another truth. Some people don't fear losing you because of love. They fear losing the control they held over your emotions. They fear losing the comfort of knowing you'd always forgive. When they feel you slipping, they don't look inward. They look outward, searching for someone to blame so they don't have to confront the discomfort of self-reflection. Their behavior exposes that what they valued wasn't the relationship. It was the power they held within it. But there are also those rare few who react with sincerity. When they feel you drifting away, they don't call to manipulate you or guilt you. They don't lash out. Instead, they approach you with humility. Their voice softens. Their walls drop. Their excuses fade. They admit their mistakes not because they're afraid of losing access to you, but because they genuinely care about how their actions impacted you. These are the ones who are perhaps careless, distracted, or unintentional in their neglect, but not unloving. Their reaction reveals a truth too. They may have taken you for granted, but losing you would feel like losing a piece of themselves they didn't realize mattered so deeply. And then there's a different category, entirely the ones who do nothing. They watch you pull away, feel you becoming distant, sense the emotional disconnect, but they make no effort to stop it. No apology, no conversation, no attempt to repair the bond. Their silence becomes louder than any argument ever could. It reveals a cold truth that's painful to accept but important to understand. Some people only valued you when it was convenient. They counted on your loyalty so heavily that they never considered the possibility that one day you would choose yourself instead. Their inaction is a form of clarity. It shows they never feared losing you because they never expected you to leave. They assumed your heart would always stretch a little further, even when theirs did not. Every reaction, panic, silence, defensiveness, humility, or indifference, reveals something about the person. You don't need a speech, a confession, or a sudden declaration of love to understand how someone truly felt about you. Their behavior in the moment they sense loss speaks louder than any romantic words spoken in comfort. When they had you, they had the privilege of stability. But when they feel you slipping through their fingers, you get to witness the raw truth beneath the surface. Some truths are painful. Some are disappointing. Some are surprisingly beautiful, but all of them are honest. And honesty, even when it hurts, is a gift because it shows you exactly who stood by you out of love and who stood by you simply because they thought you would never leave. When someone realizes they're losing access to the version of you they once took for granted, a mask begins to crack, one they may not even know they were wearing. People often move through relationships with a certain performance, a curated version of themselves designed to maintain balance, maintain control, or maintain the image they want you to believe. But when they feel you slipping away, that performance becomes harder to maintain. Their reactions grow raw, their emotions unfiltered. And in those unguarded moments, you see not who they pretended to be, but who they truly are. The mask they wore when everything felt secure falls away the moment their comfort is threatened. The mask reveals itself in the sudden shift between who they were when the relationship felt stable and who they become when they sense danger. Some people transform instantly. When they felt safe, they were confident, relaxed, even careless. But when they feel your emotional distance, insecurity rises to the surface like a tide. They may cling harder, speak softer, or suddenly drown you in affection that never existed before. It's not always genuine love. It may be desperation, fear of change, or fear of facing their own emptiness. The mask of confidence falls away, and you see the vulnerable, uncertain person who was always hiding underneath. This shift shows you that their previous self-assurance was not strength. It was comfort born from believing you'd always stay. Other people, however, behave very differently. When the mask cracks, they don't become vulnerable. They become defensive. Their easy smile disappears. Their calm demeanor vanishes. The charming, agreeable version of themselves you once knew is replaced by someone who lashes out, withdraws, or pretends they don't care. It's a self-protective mask they can no longer hold up because your distance forces them to confront a truth they don't want to acknowledge. They may lose you. Rather than face that fear, they retreat behind anger or coldness. Their defensiveness isn't strength. It's the fear of being exposed. It shows you that beneath the polished exterior was someone terrified of emotional accountability. There are also those whose mask reveals something deeper, something fragile but sincere. When they feel you pulling away, their true emotions surface not through panic or pride, but through honesty. They admit their wrongs. They confess their fears. They open up in ways they never did when everything felt stable. It's not manipulation. It's not theatrics. It's the genuine version of themselves that they didn't know how to show when things were comfortable. Their mask wasn't a lie. It was protection. Perhaps they were afraid of being judged, afraid of being vulnerable, afraid of needing someone too deeply. When they sense your absence, they drop the shield and finally show the raw, unpolished truth of who they are. Some people, though, show their mask in the form of silence. When they sense loss, they don't chase, they don't fight, they don't argue. they retreat. The person who once seemed confident and collected suddenly becomes distant, not because they don't care, but because they don't know how to express their fear. Their mask was never arrogance. It was avoidance. They were never taught how to communicate emotions, never learned how to repair a connection, never understood how to handle the possibility of losing someone important. Their silence doesn't mean indifference. It often means overwhelm. And this silent retreat reveals a truth about them. Their emotional world was much more fragile than they ever let you see. And then there are those whose mask reveals the most painful truth. The truth that they were never as invested, never as connected, and never as emotionally present as you believed. When they sense your withdrawal, the performance ends and apathy takes its place. The sweet words, the gentle tone, the promises, the plans, all of it fades instantly. Their mask was held up by convenience, not care. They cared when it was easy, not when it mattered. They cared when the relationship demanded nothing, not when it required effort. When the mask comes off, you see that their commitment was conditional, temporary, and perhaps never real. It is a brutal truth, but a necessary one. The moment they feel they are losing you is the moment you see who they truly are. Without pretense, without comfort, without the mask. Some people reveal their love. Others reveal their fear. Some reveal their brokenness. And some reveal their emptiness. But no matter what rises to the surface, the moment the mask falls is the moment clarity begins. It's the moment you finally understand what you were truly dealing with, what they were truly capable of, and what role you truly played in their life. And in that revelation, you gain something invaluable, the truth that was hidden behind their comfort. When someone realizes they might lose you, their reactions can come fast, intense, and overwhelming. At first glance, it may look like love, late night messages, unexpected calls, sudden tenderness, promises that seem to pour out of nowhere. But when you take a closer look, you start to realize something important. Not every reaction is rooted in love. Some reactions are rooted in fear, ego, habit, or loneliness. And this is where the real clarity begins. Because when someone is standing at the edge of losing you, their behavior reveals what truly motivates them. Some chase you because they love you, while others chase you simply because they can't imagine their life without the comfort of you being there. One of the most common reactions is panic. This panic can look like desperation, rushed apologies, emotional confessions, sudden warmth that didn't exist before. But panic is rarely love. Panic is fear. It's the fear of change, the fear of being alone, the fear of losing something familiar. A person may cling to you not because they cherish you, but because they are terrified of what life looks like without the routine you provided. They may be deeply attached to the comfort you gave, the validation you offered, the stability you represented. But attachment is not love. Attachment can be selfish. Attachment wants to keep you close for reassurance, not because it values your happiness. Another reaction you might see is sudden possessiveness. The person who once took you for granted may suddenly become jealous, territorial, and more attentive than ever. Their messages become constant. Their questions become pointed. Their tone becomes sharper than before. But possessiveness is not love. Possessiveness is insecurity wrapped in control. It wants you near not to uplift you, but to claim you. A possessive reaction shows that their fear is not about losing you emotionally. It's about losing access, losing dominance, losing the power they quietly held over your heart. Their intensity is not affection. It's an attempt to tighten their grip. Then there are the ones who react with guilt-driven affection. They suddenly shower you with kindness, praise, or remorse, but only because they're afraid of how they'll look if you leave. They worry about being judged, about feeling like the bad person, about facing the consequences of their behavior. Their affection is a strategy, not sincerity. They want to feel better about themselves more than they want to make things right with you. This type of reaction often fades quickly once they feel they've regained your trust. It's temporary warmth born from fear of being the villain, not from genuine love. And let's not forget the reaction that confuses the most: emotional confusion disguised as passion. Some people will rush back in with intensity, not out of love, but because they can't bear the emptiness your absence creates in their life. These are the people who treat you like an emotional band-aid. When they feel lonely, they reach for you. When they feel lost, they run to you. But when they feel stable again, they disappear. Their reactions feel passionate in the moment, but they are inconsistent. They love you when they need you, not when you need them. This reactive affection is a cycle of dependency, not love. But perhaps the most revealing reaction of all is the one that shows no emotional depth at all. Some people, when faced with the possibility of losing you, do not fight, do not reflect, do not change. They may reach out casually, sending short messages, vague apologies, or half-hearted attempts to reconnect. These reactions show they want you around, but only at a distance that requires minimal effort. They don't fear losing you. They fear losing the convenience you provided. These people keep you emotionally nearby, not because they love you, but because they enjoy having you available. Their reaction reveals a painful truth. Your presence was a luxury to them, not a priority. When someone fears losing you, their reaction will tell you everything you need to know about their true intentions. Some reactions are heartfelt, grounded, sincere. Others are driven by ego, loneliness, or fear. But the mistake many people make is assuming that every chase equals love. It doesn't. Some people chase because they recognize your worth, while others chase because they recognize their loss. And those two things are not the same. Silence is often misunderstood. People think silence means weakness, avoidance, or emotional withdrawal. But in reality, silence can be one of the most powerful responses you can give. When you stop explaining, stop defending, stop repeating yourself, your silence becomes a mirror. It forces the other person to face themselves without distraction. Without your words softening the truth, their actions stand exposed. When someone knows they've lost you, your silence becomes the one thing they cannot argue with, cannot twist, and cannot escape. It is the clearest message you will ever send without speaking a single word. Silence becomes powerful because it removes the emotional labor from your side of the equation. For so long, you may have tried to express your feelings, hoping they would listen, hoping they would change. You explained your hurt. You explained your needs. You explained your boundaries. But when your words fell on ears that chose not to listen, you began to realize something. The problem wasn't your communication. The problem was their lack of effort. So when you finally go silent, the shift becomes undeniable. You're no longer asking to be understood. You're no longer trying to convince someone to value you. Your silence says, I've said enough. Now it's your turn to hear the sound of your own choices. When someone senses your silence, it confronts them with a type of discomfort they're not prepared for. Silence removes the familiar rhythm of reassurance they relied on. It removes the emotional cushion they took for granted. Suddenly, they can't predict your reactions. They can't rely on your empathy. They can't depend on your forgiveness. This uncertainty forces them to examine their own behavior. They begin to replay conversations, rethink decisions, and reconsider their actions. Your silence initiates a level of reflection that your words never could, because silence strips away the noise and leaves only truth behind. What makes silence so powerful is that it cannot be manipulated. When you speak, they can interrupt you, overtalk you, invalidate you, or even twist your words. But when you withdraw from the verbal battlefield altogether, you take away their ability to distort your intentions. Silence is clarity. Silence is strength. Silence is the refusal to participate in cycles of disrespect or emotional chaos. It sets a boundary that is firm, unbreakable, and unmistakable. And that boundary tells them, you will not get from me what you once did, not until you understand what you lost. Your silence also forces them to sit with the consequences of their actions. People often don't realize the value of something until it disappears. They don't appreciate the sound of your laughter, the softness of your tone, the comfort of your presence until your voice falls quiet. When you stop responding, they are left alone with their regrets. They may try to provoke you guilt, trip you, or test your boundaries just to get a reaction. But your silence speaks louder than any confrontation ever could. It shows that you are no longer emotionally accessible to them. You're present enough to observe, but detached enough not to be moved. That shift is what makes silence both graceful and powerful. And perhaps the deepest strength of your silence is the way it protects your peace. Silence is not shutting down. It is choosing peace over chaos. It is choosing clarity over confusion. It is choosing dignity over desperation. Silence is what happens when your heart has learned enough lessons to stop investing where it is not valued. It is the moment you reclaim your power, not through anger, not through confrontation, but through calm withdrawal. When someone realizes they've lost you, your silence becomes the final demonstration of your self-worth. It says, I respect myself enough to walk away quietly. And that quiet, steady strength is something they will hear long after your voice is gone. There comes a point in every relationship where consequences speak louder than warnings. You can tell someone you're hurting. You can tell them you feel unseen. You can tell them what you need. But not everyone listens while they still have access to your heart. Some people only understand the depth of your presence when they are confronted with the reality of your absence. Losing you becomes the lesson they never wanted but absolutely needed. It's the moment where every ignored boundary, every missed chance, every dismissed feeling circles back to them with a force they can't avoid. Losing you becomes the teacher your love tried so hard not to be. When someone realizes they've lost someone who genuinely cared, the first lesson they face is the weight of regret. Regret doesn't come softly. It comes crashing in, loud and uninvited. They replay the moments they brushed off your concerns. They remember the times they could have chosen kindness, but didn't. They recall the nights you stayed awake, trying to fix things they didn't appreciate. And in that reflection, they begin to understand something they ignored for too long. You were giving them a type of love they weren't mature enough to value. Regret becomes their first taste of self-awareness, and it is bitter. Then comes the lesson of accountability. It is easy for someone to blame circumstances, timing, or misunderstandings when they are still in the safety of your presence. But once you are gone, there is no one left to absorb the responsibility for them. Their excuses lose their audience. Their defensiveness has no opponent. Their pride has no place to hide. They are left alone to face their own reflection, one that reveals every truth they avoided while they still had a chance to make things right. Accountability becomes unavoidable because losing you forces them to confront who they were and what they did. Losing you also teaches them the value of intention. They realize too late that staying silent, staying passive, or staying comfortable was not enough. You cannot build a connection on half effort. temporary attention, or empty promises. When they sense your absence, they finally understand that relationships require investment, consistent effort, emotional presence, and genuine care. The lesson here is harsh but simple. What you do not water eventually stops growing. They thought the connection would survive their neglect, but losing you teaches them the reality of effort. What isn't nurtured will fade. Another powerful lesson is the understanding of emotional consequences. Often, people believe that love will keep showing up even when they don't. They grow accustomed to your forgiveness, expecting you to always be available, always be soft, always be understanding. But when you walk away, they learn that love is not unconditional tolerance. They learn that a good heart has limits. They learn that even the most patient person eventually reaches a breaking point. Losing you teaches them that emotional safety must be earned, not assumed. It teaches them that love is not immune to exhaustion. And finally, losing you becomes the lesson in growth, whether they want it or not. Your departure becomes a catalyst. It forces them to evolve or stay stuck. They begin to understand their patterns, their flaws, their choices, and the gaps within themselves they always avoided. Your absence pushes them toward self-reflection they never bothered to do when you were near. Losing you becomes the push they needed. Because sometimes people change not because they want to, but because life leaves them no choice. Your presence was the comfort. Your absence becomes the awakening. When someone loses you or finally realizes they've pushed you away, it can be easy, far too easy, to question your own value. You start replaying every moment, wondering if you weren't enough, if you were too much, if you should have changed something or been softer, quieter, easier to love. But the truth is this: your worth is not measured by someone's inability to appreciate you. Their failure to recognize your value does not reduce it, redefine it, or erase it. Your worth remains whole, untouched, and intact even if someone else failed to see it. Their blindness does not make you small, nor does their leaving make you less deserving. Worth is something that exists independently of external validation. You brought honesty, presence, care, and sincerity into the connection. You showed up, you tried, you expressed, you invested, you loved in the ways you knew how. None of that becomes worthless just because someone else didn't meet you at the same level. Their emotional limitations do not diminish your capacity to love deeply. Their inconsistency does not shrink your ability to give wholeheartedly. Their lack of effort does not overshadow the strength of your devotion. If anything, your willingness to show up fully in a connection that wasn't reciprocated only proves your strength, not your inadequacy. A painful truth many people don't realize is that some individuals cannot recognize value when it's right in front of them. Not because you're not valuable, but because they lack the maturity, clarity, or emotional intelligence to appreciate what they have. You could have offered them the most genuine parts of yourself, and they still would have struggled to receive it, not because you gave too much, but because they were capable of too little. Their capacity and your worth are two separate things. You cannot measure your brilliance by someone else's limitations. You cannot determine your depth based on someone else's shallow understanding. Your worth is also not defined by whether someone chooses you or not. Some people choose what feels easy, familiar, or less demanding, not necessarily what is better. Some choose comfort over growth, ego over accountability, temporary distractions over long-term effort. Their choices reflect them, not you. If someone walked away, replaced you, or failed to fight for you, it's not because you weren't enough. It's because they weren't prepared for someone with your depth, your standards, your strength, or your capacity for real love. Your value is not contingent on who stays. Your worth does not rise or fall with someone's loyalty. One of the greatest realizations you'll ever have is this: you were the giver, not the taker. You were the presence, not the absence. You were the effort, the consistency, the heart, and the foundation. You offered something meaningful, and that offering holds value regardless of whether they honored it. When someone loses you, the void they feel speaks louder about your worth than their actions ever did. It reveals that what you brought into their life was not replaceable, not forgettable, not ordinary. You were a gift they mishandled, not a mistake they escaped. Your worth shows itself not in what you lost, but in what they can no longer access. And perhaps the most empowering truth of all is this: your worth remains even when you feel broken. Heartbreak does not remove your value. It simply reminds you where not to place it. Pain does not diminish your worth. It simply clarifies who deserves access to it. What someone couldn't appreciate in you, someone else will honor. What someone overlooked, another will treasure. What someone mishandled, another will protect. Your worth is not up for negotiation, not determined by rejection, and not weakened by loss. It is constant, resilient, and undeniable. And no matter who fails to see it, your worth remains yours, untouched, unshaken, and unwavering. At the end of the day, love isn't proven by what someone says when everything is easy. It's proven by what they do when everything is at risk. And if losing you is what finally opens their eyes, then remember this: it was never your job to break yourself into pieces so someone else could finally understand your worth. You are not the lesson. You are not the warning. You are not the consequence.